Let's talk ratios. Now, what is a ratio? Simply put, a ratio is just a way that we use to compare quantities, and it is again very intuitive. If I have 3 circles to 4 squares, I can write that as a ratio of 3 to 4. Now, very important that we say circles to squares, we know that left to right. All right, so if it's A to B, we're going to write it as A to B in that way round. Okay? And we can simplify them until there are no common factors. And if you can get it to 1 to something, this is known as a unitary ratio. Let's have a look. So if we've got 10 to 12, we could write it as the ratio is 10 to 12. But we can simplify that because I can divide both sides by 2. And if I divide both sides by 2, that will give me 5 to 6, and that is a simplified ratio. 5 to 8. There are no common factors to 5 and 8, so we leave it this way. 121 to 33. I can divide both sides of my ratio by 11, which gives me 11 to 3. The bigger one doesn't have to be on the right-hand side. If A is 121, B is 33, the ratio is 11 to 3. Other thing to note is we do not want decimals, so 1.2 to 2. All right, so what we are going to do is we need to get rid of the decimals in the most efficient way possible. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. So in the same way as I can divide both sides of my ratio, I can multiply them to get 6 to 10, which actually simplifies to 3 to 5. So that 3 to 5 would be my simplified ratio. We're also not big fans of fractions, 4/5 to 3/5. All right, so we can scale both sides up. We can multiply both sides by 5 and get 4 to 3. So these would be the simplified ratios: 5 to 6, 5 to 8, 11 to 3, 3 to 5, 4 to 3. None of these are unitary because there's no 1 involved. All right. Now we can work the other way round. Now, A to B. If I know there are 10 A's, how many B's are there? Well, what would I need to do to my ratio to get 10 A's? I would have to multiply it by 5, which means I multiply the B by 5, which is going to give me 25B. So there would be 25 of amount B. If I know how many B's there are, I can multiply by 2, and I multiply this side by 2 to give me 6, which tells me there are 6A. And in the same way, right, even with bigger numbers, if I multiply both sides by 11, I get that there are 55B. Here's one in context. The best orange drink, you have to have 2 parts orange squash to 5 parts water. So what is the ratio of squash to water? And it is often worth writing these down to remember which way round it's going. So 2 squash to 5 water. Now, if I use 40 mils of squash, now how do I get from 2 to 40? Well, I multiply by 20. So I need to scale up the water by 20 to 100. So my answer is 100 milliliters. What if I have 450 mils of water? All right, well, to get from 5 to 450, I have to multiply by 90, which means I multiply that by 90, and that will give me 180. So I need 180 mils. Now, this next bit is interesting. What if I have 1.4 liters? Now, 1.4 liters is 1,400 milliliters. All right, that's 1,400. So let's recap to ourselves. We've got squash, water, and I'm going to add in total. We can also think of the total at that point. So it's a 2 parts to 5 parts. So if I have 2 mils of squash, 5 mils of water, I get 7 mils in total. Well, if I want a total of 1,400 mils for my total, what do I have to times that by? 200. So I multiply the squash by 200, and I multiply the water by 200. So I will need 400 mils of squash and 1,000 mils of water. So we can always look at the total for both of them as well. If I want to make 2.1 litres, so 2,100 litres of orange drink, but only have half a litre of squash, do I have enough ingredients? Well, remember, like squash, water, total, we want, so we're going with 2 and 5 for a total of 7 mils, but we want 2,100 mils. So that would be times 300, give me 600 mils and 1,500 mils of water. Now, I've only got half a litre of squash. Do I have enough ingredients? Well, I would need 600 milliliters of squash, all right, which is more than half a litre. I do not. We can also play around with unknown amounts. So, planet Zorath, there are 3 kinds of mineral crystals: quartz, sapphire, and emerald. We know we have a total of 850 crystals. Now, the number of quartz crystals is 50% more than the number of emerald. Number of sapphire is 70% of the total number of quartz and emerald combined. What percentage of the total crystals are sapphire? Now, we can do a lot with this, but what percentage of the total crystals are sapphire? Well, in fact, we could just go, right, so emerald crystals, quartz crystals, sapphire crystals. Let's just take an amount. Now, we know I'm going to need 50% more, so I'm just going to take emerald to be 100. That doesn't really matter to me. Quartz is 150 then, because it's 50% more. And then sapphire is 70% of this total. That is 250 crystals between them. 7% of that is 175. For a total of 425. So, what percentage? Now, in fact, we could actually get the correct answer from this because we know we want 850 crystals total. So all I'd have to do is scale all of this up. All right. If you'd chosen a different amount to start with emerald, or you could use X's if you want, you could then scale it up. But really, because what we want here is what is the percentage? Well, sapphire, there are 350 of them out of 850. Which will give us, as the magic calculator gets up here, 350 out of 850, about 41.2%. And that is ratios.